Vocab, strong words. All right, so we have another vocab section video here. That means we are in word knowledge. Remembering that that's a WK. Um, word knowledge is 25% of your AFQT score or your ASVAB score. So it's important. As we look at okay, so ways to improve your vocab or your word knowledge scores. Biggest thing is to read more. You can only do one thing. Try to dedicate 15 minutes a day until the exam to reading. The more it's about, if you're reading about the military in some way, whether it's like a blog or a periodical or whatever, the more useful that will be for the exam. Okay, so as we get into these, we have two examples. So this section tends to have action-oriented words that are at least somewhat violent. So like vicious or ravage or caustic, right? And so for a lot of people, vicious and ravage are easier words than caustic. Okay, so let's go into, we have two examples here. Deceive most nearly means, and then we have four answer choices down there on the second line. Right? Cheat, defend, pay, or disobey. So the word we care about here is deceive. Okay. And most nearly means, and so if I'm thinking about deceive, let's see. So as I look at cheat, certainly that is a possibility, right? So I'll see what we're looking to do here is, are there any ways we can eliminate any of these answers before we have to pick our answer? Okay, so cheat and deceive are pretty similar, right? And so my initial instinct would be like, there's a good chance that's the answer. But let's see what else they got. Okay, the next one would be defend. Okay, so deceive and defend, really not particularly similar, right? So I could cross out defend. Next one, pay, even less similar, right? So I should be able to eliminate that one. And then disobey. Okay, so that one would be like the maybe category of like, let me think about this one a little bit more. Okay, so already though, we eliminated it to 50-50. So that is one of our goals, is either I know the answer or at least I can get it down to 50-50. And if you're doing that and you have a mixture of like I know it and 50-50, then we should be at least somewhere around 75% correct. I'll put you on a pretty good score for word knowledge. Okay, and then let's see if we can get it down to only one answer. So cheat we kind of like, and we'll talk about that for a second. And disobey, like my initial instinct would be like maybe not. I like cheat a little bit more, and here's why. Okay, so as I think of disobey, sometimes that can mean deceive, but sometimes not, right? So it's possible that if you gave me an order that I disobeyed it with the intention of like tricking you, right? And that's a good word, right? Is when I'm thinking about deceiving somebody, is I'm thinking about trying to trick them somehow, right? So that you believe one thing about me, right? But the opposite is actually true. Okay, so disobey, that could happen. I could disobey an order, but want you to think that I followed it, right? And that would be using deception or trying to deceive you. But it's also possible that I just straight up disobeyed you. I don't really care about whether or not I deceived you or not. I'm just not going to do what you said, right? Or it might be I disobeyed, your order right to your face, right? So that's not deceptive at all. You knew exactly that I was disobeying the order. So it works. It's okay. It's certainly better than defend and pay. But if I'm thinking about cheating, is if I'm cheating on something, is like I'm cheating on a test or cheating on your girlfriend, whatever the case might be, is like I don't want you to know. Like I want you to think that I was honestly taking the test, or that I was faithful to you. And so in that way, cheating sounds very much more like deceive. And so I would cross out disobey and pick cheat, and it ends up that is the correct answer. So like that's a really good way to go through this process, right? Is to kind of like logically think out this stuff, make sure you got the right answer, as opposed to just like rushing through it really quick, right? Right, especially with like words like disobey, it's easy enough to pick that answer. Okay, so let's do another one. Kind of go through the same process. Like obviously, like the way that I explained it out took longer than it would take to actually answer the question, right? Because I'm trying to explain the whole thought process. Actually, thinking the thought process tends to happen a little faster. She used to abhor the commute. Okay, so that's a good one because a lot of people don't really know what the word abhor means. Okay, um, but we do have it in a sentence, right? And so already she used to abhor the commute. Okay, and so like before even looking at the answer choices with this word, okay, is you're probably thinking it's abhor probably means some version of I liked it or disliked it, right? Those are probably means something like that. There's not a whole lot of other, you know, basic words that it probably refers to. Now, remember though, we're talking about a commute. How many people do you know who really like a commute? Unless it was really scenic, but then it would probably have a more descriptive tone. Like if it's something that she really liked, that she used to abhor the beautiful scenic route. But when it just says commute, is I'm tending to think pretty good chance, whoops, that the word means something like dislike. Okay, so even though I do know what abhor means, if I don't know what it means, is like that's how I'd be thinking it out in terms of what does this word probably mean. Okay, and so we do this all the time, just unconsciously, right? When we listen to people talk, if they use words that we're not familiar with, is just based on the context, like what all the other words in the sentence mean and their tone, is we can usually kind of figure out what the word means. Now, if they use three words that we don't know in a sentence, then it gets really hard. But if it's just one, this happens all the time. This is how most people learn language. Okay, so let's look at the answer choices. The first answer choice is detest. She used to detest the commute. So that detest is very much like dislike. Okay, so we like that first one. Enjoy. Okay, now it fits into the sentence, but based on what we just said, we don't think that that is very likely. Okay, so we're going to cross that off, right? And again, we're approaching this as if we don't know what the word abhor means, right? So we're going to have to look at crossing off answers that just kind of don't seem to fit. She used to remember the commute. Okay, that doesn't make any sense at all. Okay, it's very, unless you have like some brain damage or something, or at least some kind of neurological disorder, is you don't used to remember something, you just remember it. Okay, so it doesn't even make sense. All right, so we could definitely cross that one off. And then she used to refuse the commute. Again, doesn't terribly make a whole lot of sense, right? What does that mean? She used to refuse the commute. Does that mean she wouldn't go on it? If that's, and so like with any of these choices, they're not trying to trick you that hard, right? It needs to make the answer choices need to make sense within the context of the sentence. Okay, so at a minimum, we should definitely be able to eliminate refuse and remember. Enjoy, as you're looking at it, like, okay, maybe, but it really, like, if you think of the sentence, it's pretty unlikely that somebody says she used to enjoy the commute. Just, just not likely, right? And so if I'm looking at this, is I'm picking this answer, which ends up is the correct answer, the test, without really knowing what the word means at all, right? And so in many cases this is true. If you are willing to go through the process of just thinking about, especially when you get sentences, right? If they just give you like a straight word, it's a little trickier, right? But still, we're looking to eliminate things, at least get it down to 50-50. In many cases, like in these, we're really able to eliminate all the answers, even if we didn't completely know what the word meant necessarily, which is a great thing.